There's no such thing as overnight success. I think it is very simple to assume that when someone just pops into the spotlight, that oh, there's always oh, you had your moments, you were lucky, you had a viral moment, something happens, and the world sees you for the first time. But if there's anything I've learned, on this journey is that you could go like truly, truly great and remarkable things can go unnoticed for a really long time. In all my travels, I've seen people do extremely remarkable things in the world, but they're not known, they're not seen. And attention being like the greatest currency of this time means that if you're not able to call attention, and it is almost not enough to do great work, right? People do not see. So the true story of success is what is unseen. And I believe it's also what has defined the very essence of who I am. That from day one, I'd always defined my own success through the lens of the impact that I'm creating in the lives of the children that I've met and the work that I've done. And now the world is just getting to see that and be inspired by it. So yes, I've always been that guy. Everyone else is just catching up to it now.
Fantastic. It's like someone once said that you've got to be before you can do, and you've got to do before you can have. Yeah, it's powerful. At just 10 years old, you left school due to family financial situation, and you started spending time in a barber shop owned by Bros B.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bros B.
Shout out to Brosby.
He was playing chess, and in your own words, when you saw the chess setup, it was love at first sight. But there was something there that you did that was so powerful. I was telling my children about this last night. That you went home, used clay, molded the characters of the chess pieces, taught your brother how to play it.
Yeah.
So you can win it, and that way wired neuroplasticity in terms of practice.
Yeah.
That's a lot of self-agency.
Yeah.
With the little that you have, created something like that. How do you cultivate that mindset from us coming from Africa and other to the parts of the world? You don't have everything, but how do you cultivate that kind of, self-agency and growth mindset?
I think a lot of it was, for me, it was survival. And we grew up in a very small place where we had very little to work with.
Yeah.
And especially in that time, it was within, I wasn't in school. There was no money to go to school.
Yeah.
We could barely put food on the tables. To a degree, we're already like fully conditioned to think survival first, right? And my parents always drummed it in our ears that Tunde, remember the son of whom you are. If other children are doing 10 things, you have to do it 100 things. If other children are doing 100 things, you have to do 1,000 things because your fight is different. And it was something that I was always constantly reminded of. So for that reason, I was a very curious child that wanted to learn everything, that wanted to know everything. So I was also quite artistic. I could draw, quite well. To a degree, my parents also weren't having it. It was always study, your books, nothing else.
Yeah.
Right. So the thing about agency is something I've spent a lot of time reflecting on. And I think is also what has enabled me to be able to actually bring in this sort of novelty into the world. Because when you decide to do something no one else has ever done before, especially not like this, you're going to face a lot of resistance. And having very high agencies, knowing that there's just this internal compass that you're trusting your intuition to intuitively do stuff, even without having a template, right? To intuitively continue to pursue something that isn't exactly known, that something that isn't exactly prestigious. And I think this is the most valuable skill we have to teach our children now, right? Because we're living in this era of abundance where AI completely destroying the fabric of society as we know it. So what we're basically doing with the way our educational system is set up is we're training our kids to go and compete against computers, right? The world is going to change. The world has changed. And in the next decade, it's going to look a lot different from what it is now. So agency is the ability to act, right? To act on an idea, on some information that you have without approval, really without even seeing like a clear template for it. And one of my favorite examples of it was, the Wright brothers.
Yes.
And that is where you really like separate people that have very high agency from people that have low agency. They're different. They have a different way of observing the world, of noticing things, right? That is always the clear distinction between two people. It's like they look at things that are similarly mundane and they observe it differently. And the Wright brothers were looking at a bird, and the question came down to, why can this bird fly and humans cannot fly, right? And that question led to this incredible discovery of what we now have as airplanes, And just imagine a world without airplanes now.
Terrible.
Just imagine what that would mean. And being able to act on that curiosity, right, was a differentiator. Everyone else could see a bird fly and they could probably be fascinated by it. But having the agency to sort of like think about that and act on it in a way that leads you to a point of creation, is going to be the most valuable thing right now for our time, for existence. Because now we have AI. We can do anything with it. But some people still wouldn't do anything with it, right? Because they don't know how to take that and build it into something that gives them ownership,
Yes.
right? And for me, as a child, I always had that. For me, it was survival. I had to see the world a bit differently because I knew my fight was different. Chess was the only thing I had. And I built my entire life and identity around it because it was just the only thing I had.
So very, 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 very powerful. I think someone once said that the obstacle is the way.
It is the way.
It is. It is. Well, the impediment has become the path through which you express yourself. But
Yeah.
if you didn't go through what you went through as a child from 10 years old, that time, do you think you'll be here?
No. My path would have been much different.
Yes.
I mean, there's no way to tell, really. I could have taken a million other paths, but I think there's always a connection between what is your pain and what eventually becomes your purpose. I think the depth of the pain that we sort of like nurse or that has sort of like defined a lot of like our growth, it leaves something with us, which is why, let's say that no pain, should be wasted. You need to be able to construct some level of meaning from it. And when you really search that very deeply is when you find purpose. It's always at the intersection of those two things, pain or some privilege that you have.
Yeah.
And I think is why someone like me is well optimized to stand in the in-between. I have the right amount of like empathy for a childhood that I had. And now I'm being who I needed to that child, to like the 10-year-old me who needed someone to stand up for them, when I didn't have access to education, the 10-year-old me who needed someone to introduce them to something like chess to broaden my understanding of the world and understand, my place in it. So it takes the right amount of empathy to be able to carry that burden with you and actually do something about it.
Yeah.
Right. So when the kids that we work with tell me that, man, Uncle Tunde, we haven't eaten since yesterday, I know what that meant.
You get it.
I know how it feels. And when you have that level or that sense of awareness, empathy, and responsibility to a situation, the way you talk about it is different. The way you act in it is different. The way you passionately carry it's always different. Without that context or without that premise, it's hard to be truly passionate. I'm grateful for a lot of my pain, my journey, because it has helped me become what I am today. And without it, I'll be nothing.
Fantastic. So you're a master storyteller. I'm not saying that because I watched you in preparation for this interview. I geeked out on everything I could find about you. And you said that storytelling helped bring global attention to your cause.
Yeah.
Do you have a storytelling framework in business? Because most of my audience are entrepreneurs, founders. Because I believe that, like we're talking during lunch, like in an age of AI, is a storyteller that will win.
Yeah.
All right. So have you got like a framework, a methodology, a first principles that you use to craft stories? Because they're very powerful when you tell them. Yeah.
That's a very interesting question because I'd always sort of like had this grace for just understanding things a bit more like in depth than most people. And it's because everyone looks, but not everyone sees, right? So a lot of like the way like I understand like telling stories about my experiences is I believe that the best stories come to those who can tell them, right? Like two of us can experience the same thing and we leave it with different stories. Right. So what exactly is the differentiator? So for me, it has always been more intuitive than like a specific like framework to always like filter my stories by, or when things happen to me, it's like, how do I construct meaning or a story out of it? So the first thing, and which is also the way I play chess, is I learn to trust my intuition. And that is the one thing that a lot of people cannot like scientifically explain. It's just those who have it, those who get it, get it. And it takes a place of really like you need to be really still with your thoughts. When something happens to you, how do you reflect on it? And I think social media is one of the very bane of like us being able to actually like understand things in depth. It's like we're scrolling through social media, we're reading things, and we're not really spending time with them. We're glossing over it. We're moving from one thing, from geopolitics to something about maybe one celebrity, then is the next thing. So it leaves us with very little time to dwell on things. So the first thing for a story to be told is to spend a lot of time with it, to dwell on the very details of it. Now, the details of like something as mundane as this cup,
Yeah.
sitting here is that it casts this very interesting shadow. Right? So what is it about the shadow that makes it interesting? It's like that three, like it's like that the three like cyclical like appearances of it. So just continue to like opening up layers of the very things that are seemingly inconsequential to the cup being here is where you find depth. And that depth goes deep into the very essence of who you are. So the story must be breathed through your own frame, your mind, right? The way you interact with the world, it has to come from there. So that is always the first thing for me, which is why when I tell stories, it's always laced with this deep sense of soulful empathy.
Yes.
I'm telling a story because I empathize with that situation and I want people to feel that deep emotion as well. Right. So that is always the first thing for me. And I'm going to say this also so we can contextualize it within like business and for entrepreneurs that are looking for ways to get their message across. Because it's a world filled with a lot of noise and frivolities. So how do you really capture anyone's attention with the story of your work or your product? It has to be authentic, which means it has to come from you, right? No fluff, no trying to use like vocabulary and trying to sound too articulate. Authentic. So understand the very essence of who you are and let your story flow from there. I think the second thing really is the arc. Now, people sense what is soulful, right? When something comes from the depths of your soul, the way you talk about it and it shines through that, they feel it. So you've gotten their attention. And it's a gift that when you speak or when you start to say something that people listen to you. So that's the first thing that captivates anyone. Now it's people are waiting for you to take them on a journey. Right? And one of the most powerful examples that I'll give, hopefully I can bring this back to context, was when we did the Onakoya project.
It's very
So it was really
very fast.
And that is the hardest thing is like when there's already like a single story about something, it is hard to change that in people's hearts. Right. So that is even a more challenging thing to do than to tell a new story that captivates people. It's like there's already a well-defined story about something, right? And you want to change the perception about it and you want people to also think about it differently and to already to also challenge, what is already like a clear conclusion for them. And it was the story of Oshidona Bridge. And me going there, to this place that when you say Oshidona Bridge, people are already afraid because they kill people there. They've done all sort of horrible things there. And these people are people that society sort of rejected, that they don't belong with us, right? They're good for nothing. And you go there and you say that inspiring stories can come from here. And these children, they represent all of us. People that are curious about that. So that is where you're able to take them on the arc, on that story, on that journey. And I said, yes, Oshidona Bridge is a criminal hotspot, but guess what? It is also a classroom for these children to learn chess and become intellectuals. And no one has ever heard that before about that place. But then we taught them that story. We redefined that story by telling the truth, the individuals of the place. And truth matters so much more than anything else. Truth is real, right? And truth builds trust. So the truth of the story arc is the good, the bad, and the ugly. You must never put up like this facade of perfection. People will sort of like gloss over that, right? But the moment you tell truth, that truth is very gripping. It takes them on this journey of the curve and they go on it with you because they're seeking for an outcome. And we taking them through that truth of the story of the kids, it helps people follow the journey. And then that is at the very tail end of it is, what do you leave people with? What emotion do you leave them with? People tell stories that drive rage. If you look at what is going on with America, it's like if somebody says something so crazy about immigrants, you see thousands of millions of likes because people are very easily driven by rage. What drives them to be angry? What drives them to be their worst self? But there's a much more powerful feeling, which is hope, right? Hope that that you can inspire something in people to think differently about others and about themselves. And that was what Apple did, really. Apple didn't come with this when they launched the iPhone, like Steve Jobs didn't come to say, hey, see, we were able to do this, do that, all this grand specifications. He said, this is for the dreamers. And the moment people start to see themselves in a situation and the story becomes a mirror for them to view themselves or to view their lives or for them to interact just a bit differently with the thing that you're proposing, then the story is complete. You've made the connection from taking the receiver on that journey of the story to becoming a part of the story. So people need to become a part of like what you're selling, what you're proposing, what you're offering. They need to be able to see a version of themselves in it, right? They need to be able to live vicariously through it. And that is the way like I think about the stories I want to tell, that when we read these things, when we learn about these children that are strangers to us that we see on the streets and we pity from a distance, we feel a little closer to them. And for entrepreneurs, that are listening to this is whatever product or service you're selling, you're solving a problem for people. That is it. Right? That is the very fundamental thing about
Your
what you're putting.
existence.
So there's this ideal understanding of this is the world the way it is. And on the other end of it is like, this is what the world should look like because of your product. And your product is the bridge
Spot on.
that takes,
Beautiful.
the users on that
Beautiful.
journey. But then again, trust your intuition very deeply. No one can teach you that. Everything else, you can have the frameworks. But when you lean completely into the essence of who you are, then your stories will be birthed and it will be true, it will be authentic. And you're able to build trust and skill. And when you do that, you have your customers and you have your impact on the world.
And your storytelling, even the explanation of storytelling, almost made me forget the message I'm going to read right now. All right, so are you struggling to manage employee subscription payments, or are you trying to track down the one company card that's already been shared by 3 different teams? It's quite chaotic. With reserved corporate cards on Quora, you can take control back instantly. Different virtual USD cards for every business need with custom spending limits up to 10,000 US dollars. Issue cards directly to your employees. Manage everything from one simple dashboard and track expenses with Quora in real time. Today, there's a story. There's still on the storytelling theme, the story of Basirat. I want to pick that story up from here because it's so moving that I want to really tell it well. So you said here that you said you used to even be a bad writer. So people should know that this version of today that we're seeing is not how it started.
It has gone through many iterations.
A lot of iterations. So
Yeah.
if you're a bad writer, a bad speaker right now, you can improve. And then you said, but you told a story about one of your kids, the kids that you mentor,
Yeah.
Basirat, who wanted to become a nurse. You wrote a piece about that and it went viral. People were bringing support for this young lady. And I created a formula called writing online plus storytelling plus the internet equals synchronicity. Because anything can happen. You can create luck that way.
Yeah.
Should entrepreneurs write more online and tell stories more online? Because they never can tell where that will lead them to.
Yeah, absolutely. And see, attention is the greatest currency of the world now.
I see that.
And yeah, it's just, it is both fortunate and unfortunately, like, and this is why people do like very outlandish things to cut attention because see, there's what, 7 billion people in this world. There's all those billions of people on the internet, and everyone is a creator now. We all have the same access to the same devices, and everyone is writing, everyone is putting out something, everyone is doing something, and we're so overwhelmed. Like, it's just, we're so constantly inundated by just too much information, too much entertainment. So it's like, how do you carve out a space in the midst of all of this noise? And how do you ensure that what you have to say doesn't get drowned out in that noise? You have to differentiate yourself. More so now that, anyone that can't even speak English can just use AI to compose like, a brilliant, well-written, thought-out article. So what really is the differentiator when someone in the village that can just pick up a phone, use ChatGPT and churn out something that looks like it was written by a PhD holder. The odds now are stacked even higher. So, but here's the thing, as an entrepreneur, again, your place on the world really is to solve an important problem for humanity. Whether you're doing it through a product or a service, in whatever capacity, you're solving a problem. And by creating value, so, you create value solving that problem and you earn from it, everyone is happy. But then that isn't just where it ends. Having a great product, having a great idea is just a part of the equation. Being able to help people understand its value to them is the most integral factor, yeah.
And that's where your writing
Yeah.
comes.
And that is where the writing skill. So the two things you must learn to be a brilliant writer and you must learn to speak really well. Now, being a brilliant writer is easy now because of AI. You can write, and everyone is like, wow, wow. But then there's something that you need to differentiate yourself with. So the first thing would always be consistency, obviously. Now, and especially in this time, social media has given us an opportunity to do something that was never possible before, which is to build trust at scale. In the past, like for you to get your message in front of 1 million people, you have to go to the big media houses, you have to pay thousands of dollars. But now with your phone, I literally tweeted something 2 days ago and the impression was like 3 million people. And it was just a mindless tweet.
That sold that many pieces of your chest.
Yes. So again,
So how many pieces of your chest?
100
pieces.
Yeah.
For $1 million each. For how
Yes.
many in less
In less than 6 hours.
The power of writing.
Yeah. So you need to learn to write. And Twitter, for me, was where I really learned to write. It's Twitter, and because you have to distill like a lot of like complex thought into just 180 characters.
Yes.
Right. And being able to do that means that, first of all, is the soul of the message. What are you trying to communicate first? You must lead with that. It mustn't be too verbose, right? That is what AI does. It makes it verbose. It's a lot of word salad. So just strip all of that and just first, the frame is just all those things that I want to write. How can I just say it in a one-liner, right? And which was like for us, for the Oshodi project now, it was like we're looking for a way to help people empathize with the stories of these area boys that we consider societal dejects. And guess what we came up with? I just said we are all
Area boys.
Yeah. And of all the things that we said, all the things we did, that was the most powerful thing that resonated with people.
Yeah.
Right. So again, in your writing, don't aim for like virality, aim for resonance. What is it that stays with people when they read from you? What resonates deeply with them? Virality in some way is really based on luck, right? You could do something to go viral or not, right? But what you can actually control is your ability to write something that deeply resonates with your audience. So it has become very expedient for every entrepreneur to be a storyteller. No, maybe not even a writer, because now it could be video content, whatever content you choose to like pass your message across, but you have to be consistent and authentic with it. And that truth in your journey is what makes you relatable to the people you're trying to reach. And if you do that over time, right? You do that over time. Say you've spent like maybe like your readers or people that consume like a lot of what you're sharing.
Yeah.
In some sense, say you've been using social media for like 2 years consistently and you've been posting every day, maybe like a 3 minute thing read or a 2 minute video. It's like that accumulates to a degree where the person that is always reading from you must have spent 7 hours with you. Imagine that you spend 7 hours with someone online that you've never met before just because you've read their thoughts. How does that make you feel about that person? It makes you feel like you know them.
And you know them.
So that's what you must aim for. Like you must aim to create that level of relationship, end to end. Don't think too much about the numbers at scale. But if you're able to do that consistently, you're going to pull in people deeply into your community. And when you have that, then you can sell anything to them. And every entrepreneur must optimize for that.
I know your time is very, very, very valuable. As we begin to wrap up, just a few two more questions, and then we'll thank our sponsor and we'll call it a wrap. I like your mindset. You said when you believe that, I believe that you can immerse yourself in the process, but detach yourself from the outcome.
Yeah.
You are not in control of the outcome.
Yeah.
But in the process, give the process your all. Because by luck and synchronicity, it can, truly help you. Chess is a metaphor for life. Let's go a bit deeper. What's the mindset and strategy of the pawn that moves across the board and becomes a queen? Because I love one of your metaphors where you said, the African child is like the pawn and it can move to become the queen. But it has an upside and it also has a downside.
Yeah.
If it becomes a terrible queen, it's terrible for the whole world. If it becomes a positive queen, it's positive for the whole world. Yeah. What's the mindset of the pawn that moves from the pawn to become?
I think the mindset, the journey of the pawn in many ways, sort of reflects on like our own like individual.
Sorry, for context, for those who don't know chess, Give them a bit of the character of the pawn. Is enough.
Okay. The pawn is the least valuable piece on the
Yes,
chessboard.
yeah.
It has a value of just 1 point, right? Which means it can very easily be lost in battle,
Yes.
right? Unlike the other officers, the big officers at the back, the rook is 5 points, the knight 3 points, the bishop 3 points, the queen 9 points, most powerful. The king is invaluable because it cannot be lost in battle. The moment the king is captured, the game ends. But the pawn has just 1 point. Right. And the value really is in the restriction that it has, right? So it's the pawn can only move 1 square. From the beginning, it can move 2 squares, but from henceforth, it's just 1 step forward. And it can't move backwards, it can't go sideways. It can only capture diagonally sideways. The pawn is so small and its impact on the game, seems very insignificant, right? Because it's just a pawn.
Yes.
It can be sacrificed
Yes.
for the greater good. But then there's also something deeply significant about the pawn that isn't obvious to everyone. It's like this pawn, as it is, it can be more powerful than all the other officers at the back.
Really?
Right? But it has to just do one thing. It has to get to the other side of the board. And imagine all these big men and this small pawn like this needs to, in any way, just find his way to this place. It won't be easy, of course, because he has to face the entire army here.
Yeah.
Right? But the pawn has to be brave. And which is what would be the most important quality of any entrepreneur is to have a lot of courage. Now, there's an abundance of intelligence now because we literally have artificial intelligence, but there's one thing that would always be valuable. It's now the courage to take your ideas and to impress it on the world.
Interrupt you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
You said act as if what you do matters. You must be deluded. So that quote enters this thing at this point.
And that's the pawn. The pawn must be completely delusional about its journey because it is the weakest piece. It is surrounded by an army of everyone that is rooting for it to fail, that is trying to capture it. But if the pawn is able to brave all odds and get to the other side, then goes a transformation. So in chess, we call it pawn promotion. So this pawn can become the most valuable piece, which is the queen. And the queen is the most powerful piece. The moment the queen returns on the board, it has unbridled strength. It can also become any of the other officers at the back, but then the pawn takes on a new identity. So it really tells us that our journey of growth, right, isn't a final one. Like, it is something that progresses over time. And we have to be confident in our potential to become, right? The journey of becoming is where all of the growth happens. And that is it. The thing about the pawn, really, it's less about, the outcome or the destination or where it's going. It's for that pawn to get to the other side. It has to become many things on that journey. It has to become tenacious. It has to become unbreakable. It has to never be able to look back because literally it can't even go back. It is confined to a destiny of like going forward. That's a fail or to win in whatever capacity. So it's like whether we're starting from or where we're going, it really doesn't matter. It's what happens in between. It's what we become on that journey. It's what defines our lives, right? So the pawn for me is my favorite piece on the chessboard because it is the greatest miracle of chess for me, that a small one can become the big one. And what I love so much about it is also very non-obvious, right? It isn't clear. Like you look at the other pieces and you are intimidated by their look, by their strength. But the strength of the pawn is a quiet one. It's one that happens and it's time. And I've said this before, that time has a way of revealing what truly endures, right? And to give time to our journey, to our lives, is what makes the beauty of the pawn known at the very end of the race. Yeah.
This has been a
chess.
Great, fascinating conversation. So what are your favorite books apart from Animal Farm and one other book I saw on your Instagram? Yeah. I know you were saying that you don't have time to read like you used to read.
Yeah.
The Alchemist, Paulo Coelho is a great book. My
Yeah.
favorite line in that book is that when you go into the universe to seek your own personal legend, the universe will conspire to make it a right.
Yeah.
So what are your top 3 books right now?
Right now, I mean, now I'm leaning more towards just reading a lot of poetry.
Yeah, okay.
Because, what are words? But poetry is a way to make words dance. Words communicate meaning, but poetry, it just makes it dance. It makes words feel like alive. It's like you're reading something and it feels so alive in your mind. And so I've been reading a lot of poetry. But one book I would always recommend, everyone should read right now is Naval's Almanack.
The Almanack of Naval.
Oh, it's such
a very good book
for every builder.
Everybody.
Right. I
Good
think it's
book.
very important that you read
And
it.
it's free online, so you guys can check it out. It's free
Yes,
online.
yeah, Naval's Almanack is a great book, and it
Great
talks
book.
about like creating your own luck.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
also talked about how to know what's working because
Yes.
it's one of the most important decisions we'd ever make.
Yeah.
Because a lot of us are drawn by the prestige or the allure of what is popular, what is cool,
Yeah.
what is respectable in society.
Yeah.
But that isn't what you should be attracted to because that is already totally spent. If you're saying, oh, you're an investment banker, there are millions, thousands of investment bankers that it is like, what is your own differentiator, right? And how do you learn to lean into what is your unfair advantage?
Yes.
Like, how do you learn that? Sometimes you don't even need to waste too much of your time trying to network. It's like, go out and do something truly remarkable and your network would emerge. So these are some of the things that reading Almanack, has taught me. And I think it's such a great suggestion for everyone.
Yeah, it's a good book. Everyone should check out that book. Today, this has been a fascinating conversation. I want to thank everyone who made this episode happen. I want to thank Zubair for making this episode happen. I want to thank my people at Cora. Again, click on the link in the show notes to struggling to manage employee subscription payments. Are you trying to track down the company card that's already been shared by 3 different teams? It's quite chaotic. With reserved corporate cards on Cora, you can take back control instantly, issuing virtual USD cards. Click on the link in the show notes and get that. Today, I want to say thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Your life is remarkable. I was telling my brother yesterday, I said, no one I'm connected to this guy. When I was young, nurse gave me the wrong injection as well.
Really?
Yes. Yes. So it resonated with me deeply when you were talking about what you went through. You couldn't even work for like 4 months after the surgeries. It's been a great one. But I want to end with this quote when you said about stories. I love it. I told my children this last night. I said, the true storyteller must carry the burden, the beauty, the wonder, and the terror of the story. So entrepreneur, don't say, oh, they use my product and they were feeling better. They used my products. They were big. Now they're slim. They got their self-esteem. Carry the burden, carry the wonder, and carry the terror. Because if you don't feel it, the audience will not feel it. We feel you because you feel everything.
Everything.
There was one day you wanted to go to church and it was raining. You couldn't go to church. You brought out a piano and you were playing. I was like, yo. Because if you feel it, the audience will feel it.
They will.
Tunde, thank you so much for coming on the Powerful Podcast.
Yeah.
If you just say 1 or 2 words and in 30 seconds, just encourage people who are listening to this.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me again. Yeah, of course I did. Incredible. And because you've also seen a lot of what I've said in the past, I'm trying not to see the things I've said before.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I'm in this phase where I'm learning to become much more deeply integrated, intimated with my new experiences so I can tell the right stories around them. And like I said, so everyone out there trying to build something meaningful for the world, you need stories. Stories change and explain our world. And the best stories come only to those who can tell them, right? And you must lean into what the message is for you first. And if you're able to get that message, it's easy to communicate that to the world because I think the world is craving deeply meaningful stories. It's so easy to get lost in the noise of what the world is telling you, right? The world is telling you that you have to be this, you have to be that. Being able to like quieten that and listen to that inner locus that kind of guides you is where every true story is birthed from. And as long as you lean into that, like you rightly quoted, you're able to carry both the beauty and the terror of the story, the full weight of it. You should never be afraid of feeling all of the emotions. Like you shouldn't be afraid of, all of the failures that come with your journey. Everything tells a story of what is possible, what can change, and what eventually creates value for people who follow you or people who want to learn from you or people who want to get your product or service. And when you do that, with the authenticity that it deserves, I think you change the world. It is how we change the world. It is the only way our civilization has advanced. Because men and women of great stories, they've been able to sort of like distill that into a product, into a service. The story of the airplane is a story of somebody's imagination. The iPhone, is a story of somebody's ability to think in this beautiful design way, right? Everything you see around us, it's a beautiful story that has been brought to life. So lean into your own story and make it into something truly remarkable and tangible for the world. So I wish you all the best.
I'll be unkind to ask you one more thing, like Steve Jobs will always say, There's something in psychology called enclothed cognition, that what you wear affects how you feel. You know where I'm going to with this, right? When you wear that cap, what does it trigger? Because I know some clothes trigger certain things.
Yeah.
What does it trigger you?
It's a crown. For me, the cap is a crown. It's not a fashion statement. It's a crown that reminds me of the burden that I carry. It's both a crown of beauty and a crown of thorns as well. Because when I wear the cap, it's like I take on, this identity of the bridge builder. And like, my friends would always say, say you're a builder and you're a liberator. And it's not easy to do that, right? So wearing the crown is like my own Superman cape.
That's right.
And I don't just wear the crown, I wear it for children too. I'm the man, that wears big caps for little children, because when I wear this cap, you have to notice me a bit differently.
That's right.
Right? If two people are sitting differently, one is wearing this cap that has this carved thing.
Yeah.
It begs the question that why? What does it mean? And that is to be seen. And I think to be seen is what we all deeply crave, to be seen and to be recognized, to be appreciated. And for me, it's for the children that I advocate for is that I want the world to see them just a little bit more, just a little better, not for their poverty or for, the sad stories that we know to be true, but for what we know they can truly become. And this cap is just, it encapsulates the very essence of that everyone should be seen. And the cap is my own way of carrying it.
Thank you so much. So you watching me out there, your favorite navy blue suit triggers something in you. Keep wearing that.
Mhm.
Your favorite color is more than a clothes.
It's
It's an identity. Thank you so much, Tunde.
This hit.
This episode of the Paulful Podcast was powered by Quora. Are you struggling to manage employee subscription payments? Or are you trying to track down the one company card that's already been shared by 3 different teams? It's quite chaotic, isn't it? Right? With reserved corporate cards on Quora, you can take back control, instantly issuing different virtual USD cards for every business need with custom spending limits up to $10,000. If you want details about this, all of the details is going to be in the show notes of this episode of the Paulful Podcast. The episode is also sponsored by SurfPager. SurfPager is a AI and CRM tools that helps you track your salespeople's activity so that they can close more deals. Everything is in the show notes as well. Let's get into the episode for today. Let's go. Boom!